So what's dating been like? Give me the oversight of dating. Is it like weird to date again?
So weird.
I'm not very good at dating. I'm
not good at dating either. Who's good at dating?
Not really much of a dater. I'm kind of like you're my human now. I believe that each and every one of us has the power within ourselves to create the life that we really want. And I want to help give you the tools to make that happen. I'm Danica Patrick, and I'm pretty intense. Welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. On the show today is Alli Webb. She is, of course, the founder of Drybar, which started the whole craze to go get your hair done. She said that it started because people wanted to go get their hair done a couple of times a week so they didn't have to do it themselves. And, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just nice when somebody plays with your hair. At least I like it. It's a great way to have a little girls' night out, go get your hair done at, Drybar and go out to dinner and grab some drinks. And we had a great conversation about a lot about growing, like growing as a human being and the trials and tribulations of life and what it throws at you. And just because someone is accomplishing really great things doesn't mean that they aren't struggling. And so we talked about that today. We talked about the things that she's been going through and where she's looking to expand as a person and to grow stronger. But one thing's for sure, Drybar is going strong, 130 locations and growing. So please enjoy this episode today. I really enjoyed talking to Alli and having a very meaningful conversation. This is really cool for me because obviously, you arrive and the girl that's here is the girl Stephanie, who's my friend, who set us up for the first time in Scottsdale. That was like 2012.
Gosh, was it that long?
So, I mean, Drybar had only been going then for 2 years. And so there was a location downtown Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And I remember my friend Stephanie said, oh, she didn't even know it was like you that was doing my hair. She's just like, some like main girl is going to come and do your hair. I'm like,
main girl.
Some like important main person. And so I get there and then I don't even know right at first. And then I'm like, holy shit, you own the whole damn thing.
Yeah. I think as I was doing your hair, I was kind of telling you who I was.
Yeah.
Like, oh, but you were telling me who you were too, because I was like, they told me, they're like, Danica Patrick is coming in. And I was like, who's that? And they're like, she's this really famous race car driver and she's amazing. And I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And then, we totally
you started a craze, girl.
I know, man.
There's all kinds of them now. I mean, they've got all kinds. There's
a lot of copycats.
There are.
We have 130 locations.
Is it 130 now?
So we're pretty far ahead of the pack. I think there's definitely a secret sauce that is hard to emulate, in my humble opinion.
What's that?
Yeah. What's that?
What is that? Like,
the secret sauce? Well, I mean, first of all, this business is rooted, with somebody who has spent 20 plus years doing hair. I mean, I grew up in South Florida where there was so much humidity in the air and I had curly hair and it was just always so unruly and frizzy and I hated it.
You have curly hair?
I have naturally curly hair.
I would not guess that.
If I didn't have curly hair, we probably wouldn't be sitting here because Drybar would never have been a thing. Because as a kid, in Florida, I hated my hair because it was just crazy and big. And I just didn't understand how the models of that time, like, Cindy Crawford and Christy Brinkley, which I'm probably, aging myself.
No, you're right on par. I mean, I'm right there.
Yeah, they had this like beautiful bouncy straight hair. And I was like, how in the world do they get their hair to look like that? And I remember looking through magazines and being like, how did people make their hair look like this? And it was this seed that was planted in me truly all those years ago. And I used to beg my mom to blow out my hair and she wasn't a hairstylist. And I would get so mad. I mean, I literally have photos of her blow drying my hair and I'd be like, there's a ridge, like you missed a few, like she wasn't great at it.
You're a perfectionist.
But I was a perfectionist even all those years ago. And so, the seed was really planted then. And then I spent, high school in so many hours.
You were in fashion then, right? Like, that was kind of your first thing. So it makes sense that you're talking about models because you were in fashion for a while and that was the first time you worked with your brother, Michael.
Yes.
And then you went to hair school when you were like 21, right?
Yeah. So out of college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And my friends all had majors and I was like, how do you know what you want to do? And I really didn't know. But I did go to college for like a second and then I ended up going to...
Well, I never went at all. So in fact, I have a GED, so I'm not judging at all.
Yeah, I know. And I love telling people that. And what's ironic to me is how much I get asked to speak at colleges.
Oh my God, cheers to that. I get asked to do the commencement speeches. And I'm like, I don't really think I have a good place for that. Yeah. I mean, I have a GED. I'm going to probably tell the kids, this is a waste of money.
Yeah, I know. I mean, when I've been
not always, unless you're a doctor.
Yeah, yes, I mean, there's some things you probably need to go to college for. But yeah, no, it wasn't for me. And I went to fashion school. I went for fashion marketing, and I loved that. And then I ended up working in fashion in New York City, and then I kind of just realized it wasn't for me. And I was working with my brother Michael at the time, and now he's my partner again. But I must have been 21, 22 when I decided to go to beauty school, which was like clearly the best decision I ever made. But it felt like that in the moment.
What happened? Like what? Why
prompted it?
Yeah, like what?
Well, my brother and I were running a couple of Nicole Miller boutiques in South Florida, which we were both working for Nicole Miller in New York City, and then we moved back to South Florida and opened a couple of boutiques. And I was like, 20 something running these 2 retail operations. And I was like, this can't be it. Like, this is not the rest of my life. Like, this is not what I want to be doing. And Michael and I started fighting a lot. And I think it's just because like neither one of us were doing what we really wanted to be doing with our lives. And so I said, I think I'm going to go to beauty school. And he was very supportive of that. He was like, you're great with people. You love hair. I think that's perfect
you like
for
doing
you.
Your own?
And I had kind of, gotten better at my hair, but still wasn't great at it. But I just loved.
Did you do your hair today?
Yes.
It looks great.
Thank you.
Did you use a wand, like a flat iron, or did you use an actual barrel?
Our 3-day bender.
I need that. I keep
oh my God, I can't believe I didn't bring you stuff. Oh my God. I totally should have done that.
Don't worry, I buy your stuff anyway, okay?
I have to,
and it smells so good.
One day.
But the flat iron curl thing that I did today, I lost a lot of, I lost a lot of hair today.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not very good at it yet because short hair is new for me.
The key is small sections, small clean sections.
You're totally right.
Because I think that's what everybody does wrong. I'm quite certain of it. Everybody takes a massive section and I'm like, well, it's like it should be 1 to 2 inches and be very clean, and then you won't lose hair. But the flat iron curls are good because they actually stay, and I know your hair, and your hair is very, very straight. So getting the flat iron curls is good for you. My hair is naturally curly, so for me, it's the 3-day bender. But anyway, where was I?
Well, you went to beauty school, you love doing hair. You like doing your hair, and you got better at it. And
it's like I feel
was beauty school. Was it hair? Or was it makeup too?
It wasn't makeup, I don't think, but you did learn manicures and the whole thing. You learned cut and color. I ended up cutting hair for a long time, but I swear I went to beauty school to learn how to blow out my own hair. However, when I was in high school, I worked at a hair salon as a receptionist, and they used to blow out my hair, and I would just like be fascinated studying them in the mirror, like how do they do it? It could not be more perfect that I do what I do and I'm who I am, because truly it was like this thing that mystified me for so many years. I was so into hair and blowouts. So
you obviously got in so deep, because then it's deep. You did that, but then you did hair, and then when you wanted to have a family, I'm like, it's all coming together now. Why your company was Straight at Home. Straight at Home. And I was like, why did she call her company Straight at Home? But you want to have kids. And so then you started kind of doing something, that was like your side hustle to like be at home and yet still do a little bit. Yeah. And it was called Straight at Home. And I always wondered why. And it's totally because he wanted straight hair.
My whole life. I was like, I just want straight hair. And I was always mystified by the girls whose hair just grew out of their head straight, which I actually know technically why that happens now, because I've researched everything there is to know about hair. And like my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, her hair sticks straight, and I just always kind of hated those girls.
Well, can you tell me why mine has a wave in the back then? It's straight.
Well, it's interesting because it's like basically the way your hair grows out of your head is how like your hair gets whether your hair is going to be straight or wavy or curly gets determined.
On.
So, well, for you, it's very normal for people's hair to grow in different ways.
So when I sleep at night, and it's like I still do it even when I have short hair now, but for long hair, I take my hair and it goes above me when I go to sleep.
Like on your pillow.
So the long end is up high, above the pillow.
Yeah.
And so I'm not laying on my hair, and it's not down by my side.
Do you sleep on a silk pillowcase?
No.
That would help things.
Okay.
Yeah, because.
But is it because I'm like the back of my head lays,
it gets curly?
Like the hair, it's like up. It lays like this.
Yeah.
So the back of my head's really wavy, but the rest is pretty straight.
So what happens when you wake up?
Oh, it's like grown like that. Like it's a perma wave. Like that thing is like.
It's so normal.
It's like I got a perm.
I feel like most women have pockets of their hair. Like
I always thought it was hormones.
I don't.
Bullshit.
I mean, I think that hormones potentially change the way your hair over time.
Texture maybe?
Yeah, 100%. But and as you get older, your hair changes a lot. And I don't know if this is actually true. I believe it to be true that every 7 years your hair changes. I think that's true.
There's a thing that you change as a human being every 7 years, like taste buds, all kinds of stuff.
I believe, is that why there's
every 7 years you get divorced?
Yeah.
I got divorced literally on the 7 years to the day I got married.
I remember when we were at 7 years, my now ex-husband, and I remember thinking like, yeah, no, I don't think that's real. I got the 16-year itch.
Oh, you got way. You did the double. You doubled down. You went for there's probably some transition time at the end, so I'm going to call it the 14. You did a double.
Yeah, I did a double. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think the reason, back to your earlier question, that we're so far ahead of the game from the copycats is just because of this like deeply rooted love I have had for hair. And so I've worked in hair salons, I've worked in the industry for so many years that I was so uniquely qualified to do something like this. And when we started in 2010, there was nothing like Drybar.
That's so crazy to me that maybe it's crazy to think what it is now to look and see that it went from a company that was straight at home in 2009 to Drybar in 2010. Yeah. But you started like why did you decide, what made it time for a brick and mortar? Like what made it time for a real salon?
Well, I was operating this mobile business straight at home and it was somewhat of a whim of an idea. There was no I wasn't trying to build a big business. I was trying to get away from my kids for a couple of hours, during the day and do something for myself. And because
adult conversation.
Yeah. And because I had spent so many years in hair and I was like, this will be a piece of cake for me. And
so how often were you doing, like how many?
So I put up my ex-husband, who's like the creative of Drybar. He made me a 1-page website. I came up with the name Straight at Home, which I was quite proud of. I thought it really checked all the boxes.
Right, because you're going straight to your home.
Well, straight at your home, straight hair at your home.
Yeah.
I'll come over when your baby's sleeping. I put up this 1-page website. I went to all the mommy groups all over town, and I was like, I'll come over while your baby's sleeping. And
for yoga class, you're like, here you go, here you go.
But what was amazing, and I think the marketer and entrepreneur in me was so excited to start getting the calls, and that's what happened. Is I started getting calls to come to women's home, women I didn't know, and I started building up this business where I was like, I really, in theory, I don't think I actually made any money. I was charging $40 a client in between gas and driving all over. Yeah. And my Nissan Xterra with a duffel bag in the back seat. I was doing maybe 2 to 3 clients a day. It was nothing. Yeah. But it grew really fast and I started getting calls and I really was saying no way more than I was saying yes because I still had to pick up my kids from preschool and I just the
point of the job was to be flexible.
Yes. And so, but I'm so grateful that I did that and for that experience because so much of that business has informed what Drybar ultimately became. And I really realized during that time when I was saying no to my clients, my next question to them was always, well, what do you do? Where do you go? And they're like, well, either go to the Fantastic Sam's down the street, which they hated because the lighting is bad. It's the experience is bad. You don't know what you're getting. Or they would go to their cut and color salon where they're, paying upwards of $75 to $80 for a blowout, if not more. And they were like, so I just don't do it. And I was like, well, that's a shame, because they loved it when they did it and it gave them this extra boost of confidence and they were really happy. And so that's when I went to my brother, who's bald and has no business in the hair world, and said, I want to turn my mobile business into a brick and mortar. Mm-hmm. And this was 2010, or almost 2010. It was in the middle of a recession. Yeah. Most women got the idea. Yeah. Most men were like, this is the craziest thing. Even my brother's first response was like, why would a woman pay somebody else to blow out their hair? Now, this is 10 years ago, and I feel like men are a lot more savvy about blowouts now, but even still, men are like, what? What's a blowout? But women got it, and I mean, man, we had to personally guarantee that first lease in Brentwood because the landlord was like, huh? Everybody was like, what the hell is this concept? And my brother had worked in real estate marketing and he had a good friend who was an architect, this Harvard award-winning architect who built, $1 million homes. And, he was like, my little sister has an idea for a hair salon concept. Would you do it with us? And he was kind of in between projects, and his name is Josh Heitler, and he still to this day, 10 years later, builds all our stores. But
that's cool.
He was in, we couldn't afford him. We gave him a little bit of equity and away we went. And
boom.
And it was just this crazy thing. And I remember going to Brentwood God, I haven't thought about this in so long, but I remember going to Brentwood when we were under construction and the shopping center was dead. Like there just there was nobody in sight, no women, nothing. And my brother was like, Alli, what the fuck? Where is everybody? And I was like, they're going to come. It's like, we will build it and
they will come.
Yeah. And sure enough, you know, the first day we opened, we were booked solid. It was like,
What?
I mean, we hit the ground running. It was so unbelievable.
To me, it just totally shows that it's your calling. Like it's meant to be. It's you were in the flow of like what was needing to happen. You were feeling into it, and like you trusted. You had to have believed, right? I mean,
I did. I mean, and I think that the phrase "ignorance is bliss" very much applies to me. You know, I've always been a little bit head in the clouds. Like I'm really bad about knowing what's going on in the world and in the news, and I've never paid super close attention to that. I'm not super proud of that, but it's just who I am. And when we were looking at that first location and everybody was like, you're crazy. Also, a lot of people told me the actual space we were looking at Brentwood. I remember a woman coming to me and being like, every business that's been here has failed. I was like, thanks for that. Yeah. But we're not going to. Yeah. And I was like, I really believe, at least in my little world in LA and the clients I had, I really believed that women would pay $35 to look really great. And I thought that they would probably go longer in between cuts and color because you kind of camouflage it with a really great blowout. Right. And that was it. That was my belief and that was my dream and that was my hope. And
there's
never
power in believing. Yeah. I mean, to me, there's a difference between like let's say for me in racing, like, oh yeah, I believe in you, to like, no, I really like know you're going to do this. Yeah. And it's the same. So you have to have people around you that do, and then you have to believe it. Yeah, but as long as like one critical element person really, really, truly believes something's going to happen. It was the same thing with my whole career. Like there's no reason why I should have been a professional race car driver. I was living in England. I came home. I didn't do anything for almost 2 years, but for some dumb reason, I still believed it was going to happen. I truly just believed it.
Do you always want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I started racing when I was 10. So, like, I just truly believed that it was going to work out. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. So you believed in this. Yeah. You believed in this. Yeah. And there's magic in that. Like, I tell people, like, even when there's an example of somebody, let's say, who has a family member that's sick or something like that, I'm like, just trust. I'm like, and really, like, picture them getting well and really believe they're going to. Like there's a magic in the belief, or if it's a company or whatever it may be, or a project, or
it's funny how that I believe that too. This, as you know, this has been a really tough year for me personally. So you kind of forget that, you forget that like, oh yeah, you have to like believe things are going to work out and things are going to get better, and at that time now, 10 years ago, I was so like bright-eyed and like, I can do anything. And as you get...
is bliss.
Nice. It is nice.
It is nice.
And as you get older, you're kind of like, oh, well, shit, life is hard,
Yeah.
And,
there's also a level like, I mean, maybe you're similar, but I'm kind of getting the feeling like you think this way too, that you kind of also don't really give a shit what someone says. Like if they're like, oh, that's not going to work, you're like, yeah, I don't care.
Right.
Or
totally.
Not, I've never been like I'll show you, but I'm just like, your beliefs are not mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop.
It doesn't matter.
You're not affecting me in the slightest.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because we had a lot of naysayers in the beginning, and a lot of people that just were like, yeah, I don't get how this concept is going to work. I mean, and in my mind, I knew that we had to do, a certain amount of blowouts. And at that time I was thinking if we could do 30 to 40 blowouts a day, that would be a great business. And now that would be a terrible day. I mean, now we're doing upwards of 100 blowouts a day per store, which
for 130, which is like a times lot. 130.
It's a lot of hot air.
Yeah.
That's my joke. But yeah, no, it's been such a trip.
What was the magic sauce? So now we're to actual salons.
Yeah. So I think it was.
So what was the parts that were like super?
It's a lot.
Important?
It's definitely a lot of things. I mean, I was obviously responsible for hiring and the stylist, which in the beginning there wasn't a whole lot of like training that was in place. That kind of came with time once I realized like, the stylist needed some training, and that now we have a very robust training program, but I knew what to look for in stylists. And I also knew how to like tell if clients were happy, because I knew what looked good and what didn't. And I also knew how to achieve it. So I could always step in, and I could always, and I spent like the first 6 months in that first store every single day from open to close. I didn't really want to leave. I was like, it was so intoxicating that like it was so busy and crazy. And then my parents were entrepreneurs and they had their own business. So I grew up in that world. So I really understood customer service from like, I had such an education growing up in my parents' business that I didn't even know I was getting at the time. But, I watched my parents bend over backwards for customers, and I watched how their businesses thrived because of it. And that was such an important ingredient. Yeah. It's like
modeling.
And I'm such a firm believer in, I've had a lot of, before Drybar, I had a lot of like careers and I did a lot of things, and I'm such a firm believer in like, you have to really trust your path. And all of the things I've done, every single job I ever had, I started working when I was like 16, and every single job I had, I really think made me who I ultimately became. even I was a publicist for a couple of years when I lived in New York, and
but that taught you about that part of the business.
Yeah, and I learned how to write and be like professional and all of that, which I eventually needed to be running a company, And
people try and worry too much about where they're going and how they're getting there, and they're getting the perfect job. And I always tell them, like, just get started.
Yeah,
even if it's not the right job, it'll teach you something, or even if it's not a good
And
one.
they weren't. They were all not the right jobs for me. They were me experimenting and figuring out what I wanted to do. And and if you were to look at me, and you'd probably be, and I remember feeling a little kind of judged, and again, not really caring what people thought, but I jumped from thing to thing in my 20s, in career to career, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I tried all these things, and like, thank God that I did, even though it seemed a little like, oh, what's Alli doing? And she's doing this now, and she's doing this now, but I learned so much, and I wasn't like trying to learn so much. Obviously, like the older, wiser version of me now knows that that's what I was doing, but at the time, I was just following like my heart. I was following my gut, and I just was doing the thing that made me happy at the time in that moment. And it really, truly, I believe, made me.
Do you feel like you're someone who lives in the present or the past or the future? Like, give me your tense of thinking. Like, I'm someone who lives in the future. Like, I have a goal in mind, but you sound pretty good at flowing.
Yeah, I think I try to live in the present. I try to enjoy the moment, but in terms of like the future, I think I'm really trying to not do this. I'm trying to work on not being worried about what's coming next and enjoy what's now, And I think that like probably my perspective has shifted because I went from being married, that's just I'm in the very like personal growth phase of my life. Because I spent the last 10 years so heads down building my business and raising little kids that I am now like, hey, I like need a minute for myself here. Yeah. And now that, I spent 16 years with this one person, and now I don't have that person anymore. And it was very jarring, like to readjust to all of that. And I'm like, well, so what happens? Like, do I stay single forever? Do I date again? Do I get married again? Like, and so I am trying to not put so much emphasis on that. I'm trying to just live in the moment and enjoy, because I'm where I want to be. And this is what I wanted. I wanted like a kind of a second shot at, like, not to sound so cheesy, but like love and romance and all of that. And so I was like, that's what I'm going to do. But now that I'm in that, I'm like, oh crap. Shit, am I going to be alone forever? Like, am I going to remarry? Am I going to have
out of control?
It's a little like, it feels very unsettling.
Well,
but like, fun too. It's a weird place to be.
It's cool. And I want to talk more about that for sure. But what did so you go from like not working to being a mom to all of a sudden now you're there every single day.
Working to being a mom.
Well, working to being a mom, kind of working.
Not
really working, kind of working, loving what you're doing. And now you have a business and you're working every single day. So this, you opened up the floodgates. Yes. And so did that cause tension? Because you went from basically going, wait, hang on, this was supposed to be a side job. Yeah. And now all of a sudden I never see you.
Oh yeah, my life completely turned upside down. And
I had to. Drybar was a bomb.
Yeah, it exploded.
It just exploded.
It exploded. And thank God that my mom, I grew up in South Florida. My parents divorced when my mom was in her late 50s, and we kind of like inherited my mom, and she kind of we kind of moved her wherever we moved once I had my second son, which was, I was so grateful for that, because she was always there to be with the kids and thank God she was, because I really don't know what would have happened if she wasn't, because I was so excited and it was so like intoxicating that we had, started this business. It was just thriving. It was like lightning in a bottle. I mean, we just felt like we were on this rocket ship and it was awesome. And, but I had 2 little kids. And so I was like, I wasn't comfortable leaving them with the nanny all the time. Oh yeah. So much guilt. I mean,
so your mom watched them.
So my mom
did your ex-husband watch them a lot too? Or was
he was
doing the same thing.
He was thrust in the business as well. And he was doing all the creative. And when we first started the business, he was a creative director at an advertising agency, which is a very demanding job.
I wonder why all your stuff looks so damn good.
Yeah, he's so good.
I mean, so good.
So
like
good.
Your branding is the best.
It's so good. I would love to say
your new company Squeeze. Like, I'm like, God, who does her branding? It's amazing.
Well, you can now hire him.
Okay.
Because he has started his own business.
But
good for him. The way it started for him.
Obviously his calling. He's good at it.
Yeah, he's so good at it. He's just amazing at that. And he was working at an advertising agency and then like at night working on Drybar. And that really went on even for the first year or 2 after we started Drybar, until Drybar was able to like bring him in-house. And, fast forward now, this last year, he kind of went out on his own and started his own agency, which has Drybar as a client and our new business Squeeze. And then and then he does a couple of other things. He won't take on a lot of clients. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time because we were both incredibly busy doing very different things, which, by the way, is why the 3 of us, our partnership worked so well, because my brother was really the business side of things and Cam was the creative and I was the hair. And, so it really worked incredibly well. But thank God for my mom. And I think it was a lot of strain on the marriage, because I very quickly became the face of the company.
Oh yeah.
And I had to travel all the time. So he still was home with the kids a lot. And it was definitely a shift in a lot of ways in roles in the marriage, because, he had always been the breadwinner. He was the one who was working and I was home with the kids. And then all of a sudden I wasn't home with the kids and he was kind of home with the kids and I was kind of the breadwinner. And
that's difficult for a man.
Lot. And he was okay with it. I think me traveling a lot was really the biggest issue.
Even worse. Just being gone.
Being gone so much.
Why is that?
I think it was just, you don't have kids. Right? No kids. I think just being with 2 little kids for anybody is just a lot.
And 2 dogs are driving me freaking nuts. I'm like, I literally, like, my girlfriends were leaving. I'm like,
can you take the dogs?
Over these dogs. I feel like a mom with kids, and I'm like, I can't deal with it. I'm like spazzing out. I'm like yelling at them today. And I'm like, I feel like a parent who
that's how it is.
Like a single parent with a couple of like rascals that just won't calm down.
By the way, so that's
so now you don't have help. Like
and it's like the kid. It's like that's how Cam felt. He's like, I don't love being a single dad. Which the irony is now he is for real, but. He didn't like having to be, not that he didn't like being with the kids, but it's just also like 2 young kids is like as hard as it gets. Now we have like 2 teenagers and that's easier because they can take care of themselves a lot more. When you have little kids and one's still in diapers, it's just, and they're always going this direction. It's a lot. And I know it because I was doing it too. And I was like, well, I stayed home with them by myself all the time. Like, it's your turn now.
I know, when you hear a guy going like, I did a mommy day. I'm like, I do every day like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so it did put a lot of strain on the marriage. And we were just so busy and tired.
Did you communicate through it? Or was it something where you felt like it was hard to find time to even do that? It was
hard. Yeah, obviously we ended up in divorce. So we clearly didn't do something right. But there was a lot of other things there.
Well, not everyone that comes into our life is meant to stay. I believe that.
I believe that too. I wholeheartedly believe that. I've learned more about myself in this last year from dating people that I didn't know. And by the way, the whole like 7 years, every 7 years you change. Like, I believe that's true. I met my husband when I was 26. I'm 44 now. The amount of changes I've gone through in that time is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And, I just couldn't be more different than I was when I met him. Yeah. And I'm just such a different person in so many ways, and things that I want for myself and out of a relationship and all of that stuff is just completely different. You just change so much. So
what has that been like then in the last year? Tell me about that. Tell me about what that growth looks like.
Well,
like what difficult positions have you put yourself in? What are you trying to face?
Well, I mean, I think it's like, perhaps it's like a little midlife crisis-ish. I don't know. There's, I think that even though, I think that it was good that we broke up, we split up. I didn't anticipate the energy of not having that person around and what that would be like. There was that, you always have that I always had that person. Yeah, the loss. And I remember people saying to me, it's a death. And I was like,
yeah,
no, it's not like that.
Yeah.
Until I realized it was. And I found myself kind of in a bit of a depression for, which I actually love talking about this stuff because I don't think people talk about it enough. And I think there's so many mental health issues in this country that people don't face, and they just medicate and they don't talk about it and do the things. And I did all the things. I went to this crazy retreat in Nashville where you give up your phone for a week and you do intensive therapy. I went to Reiki healers. I still do that. I started doing Transcendental Meditation because I was so face down for so long. And I was so in this depression, which really blindsided me. I mean, that's the thing. I think I was blindsided in so many ways that I didn't see coming, obviously. And just readjusting to this new life and this new, being a single mom and living by myself and not having that person that I always had to check in with to just tell about my day, the highs and lows, that person that you share that stuff with. And that, I think that being gone and bouncing business ideas off of that. And I have an amazing group of friends that really stepped up for me during that time. And thank God for that. And, I'm super close with my brother. My mom passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So
that had been hard.
That kind of was that was kind of hard. And I don't think I ever really dealt with that. And then once the divorce
gonna
happened,
have to.
Yeah.
Have to, Alli.
Once the divorce happened, I think it all just culminated in this, I just kind of fell into this deep depression where I had to I was like, what is happening to me? And I had to
Did you feel like you
get
knew
out.
who you were?
I didn't know who I was. I was so lost. And it was the first time since probably I was high school when I was saying before, when all my friends decided to go to college and they knew what their majors were, and I felt very lost. It was like, if I could equate it to something, it was probably more like that, where I'm I am so lost in my life right now, and I don't know who I am, and I don't know what I want, and I don't know what I want to do with this next chapter. And that's such a it's such a disconcerting, uneasy feeling, So, I spent the last year in that.
What was the first step? What was the first?
I think the
what
first step.
was the first step to realizing it then? Realizing who you were and what you wanted.
I think it was it was a lot of soul searching and taking time to put on the brakes and figure out what I wanted to do and try to refocus. And I don't know that there was a first step. I think it was a combination of things that I started being you gotta get yourself. I mean, I started reaching out to lots of different people. And I think because of the void with my mom, I think I found myself, reaching out to certain women in my life who were older and represented, older than me, and represented a mom. I somewhere similar to how I met you, I met Maria Shriver, and Catherine Schwarzenegger is a friend of mine. And so I remember reaching out to Maria, and she was like, get out of bed, do this, do that, and and I was like, okay. And she scared the shit out of me. And she's like, you have to, she's like, it's not uncommon what you're going through. It's women who get divorced after being married to someone for so long.
Yeah.
It's just, this is so normal. You have to just be there for your kids, and you have to get up, and it's you just kind of have to go, and you got to just get back out there and, and face the world. And, and there was a few women like that came into my life, and I just started figuring out and started going to therapy regularly. And that's where I started, I found a couple of girlfriends of mine who had also been through divorce and things like that. They're Transcendental Meditation is saved my life. I did that. I went.
Tell me more about that. I'd love to get more into that.
It's amazing. And I had tried meditation, and I always, I mean, I'm sure when most people try it, your brain is all over, and
nobody feels like they do it right. Everybody's I don't know if I'm doing it right. Well, there's no real official way.
There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
But I think the idea behind meditation is to shut your brain off and stop thinking. that, you know, but which is practically impossible, because if you say stop thinking, it's all you do. Like, don't think of the pink elephant.
I'm thinking, I'm not thinking.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing about transcendental meditation that resonated with me so much is that, you know, you go through this like training, they really talk to you about it. And the thing about it is the way they explained it to me, and being such a visual person, that it really resonated. I remember them showing me a picture of like, a brain that is in fight or flight mode, which is basically, as humans, we operate.
Was it colors, like an infrared, like color?
Yeah,
like
we operate from the frontal cortex of our brain.
Okay,
and that's the CEO of our brain. So that's where we make good decisions, and where we like weigh things out, and like that's the good part. When you're in flight or fight mode, which is like if a bear is chasing you,
sure,
all that blood like rushes, and you're just making a decision based on like, oh shit, like I'm in trouble, I got to make a decision. And they showed me a picture of like a brain in that fight or flight mode, which is like there's no blood or very little blood flow coming here, and it's all back there. So you're all at your brain and your chemicals are all out of whack. And so and don't quote me on that. That's how I interpreted it. Someone might be watching and be like, that's not exactly what it is. So whatever.
We're no doctors here.
No claiming here. But that's how I interpreted it. And basically what the transcendental meditation does is like it transcends you and helps your brain truly like calm down, and it transcends you, which I know sounds like weird and trippy, but the first time I did it and then I started doing it, they give you a mantra that is like very specific to you, and you can't tell anybody it, and it's just yours, and you repeat the mantra over and over and over.
It's not words though, right? It's a sound. It's like
not quite.
Or like something like that.
It's not quite a sound, but it's not words.
Okay.
But somewhere in there.
Okay.
And so you repeat this over and over again. And
do you have to see someone special for that?
You have to go to get trained on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like there's a place in LA called the David Lynch Foundation.
Okay.
That's where I went. I think you can hire like a private person to do it too. But you have to go. It's like about 4 hours. So you go. I went 4 nights a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay, 4 hours straight. I'm like, God, I need a snack in there.
No. It's like 4 hours. And you go Monday through Thursday, which is like, I was like, I will do it.
I'll have this done in 4 hours.
Yes, I will so when you're meditating, it is this bizarre thing. And as someone who has never really meditated, I was like, I will do anything to feel better. You know, and I didn't want to go on antidepressants just for me. Like I'm very sensitive to that stuff, which by the way.
Well, you're talking about medicating a lot.
Yeah, I did not want to do that. So with the meditation, it literally, like the best way you can describe it is it like something transcends in you, and it's almost like you go to sleep, but you don't, it's like you come out of it. You do it for 20 minutes twice a day, and you come out of it, which I've like slacked on a little bit lately, but you come out of it and you're like, I know I wasn't asleep, but I wasn't awake.
Okay.
Where the fuck was I? Sorry.
Theta state.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird.
You're in that limbo mode.
But you come out and they say there's an accumulative effect, and which is also like hard to wrap my head around. But the more you do it, and I'll tell you, even my kids noticed, and my kids were like, you don't get as mad as you used to get. There is a calmness about me.
Well, I need to try that then.
You 100% should. I think everybody on the planet should do it. There's such a calmness about me that I've never had. Like I've always had like road rage. Do you have road rage?
No. Yes.
I've always like, by the way, I just got, not to like name drop cars, but I just got a Porsche for the first time.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, I just want to drive it so fast.
Is it a car or the SUV?
It's the Cayenne.
Nice.
And I realized, because I went somewhere to test drive.
I can recommend some roads to take.
I know. Well, they told me they have this like track that you can, like somewhere that you can just
sure.
Like, I was like, I want to do that so bad.
Just take Decker Canyon Road right here and that'll get you there too.
And because I'm a bit of an aggressive driver, which I feel like you would appreciate.
Definitely going to tell
you how to drive. Why are you driving so slow? But there's just like this like intensity about me, which I think I still have, but that the TM has really like calmed me down. So I think it's
like a reset.
It is a bit of a reset. And when you're doing it all the time, I can just feel it. I am different than I used to be. And there's a calmness about me, and there's a peace with me that I didn't used to have.
Well, you said cumulative, and it makes me think of cumulative on the other side of things, which is where things build up, things build up, things build up, things build up. And so, I think of it like it's almost easier to me to associate, like if you can just get back to neutral or like reset set back at zero again. Even if you accumulate through the day, which you're going to, you're never going to get to where you'd be if you never did it at all, which is like continuously building and getting edgy and
you never
projecting
release it.
and
and that's the thing.
Or you release it in ways that are really unfair.
Right. When you're snapping at people and things. And, one of the things I remember them saying about the Transcendental too is that like, if you really do it regularly, you really can purge deep. Like you can get stuff that's been like built up in you.
Have you felt that before?
I mean, I think like I said, like I just feel like I've changed so much. It's really helped me like just calm down and help me like deal with things better and not get, I just don't think I get like as mad. I don't think I have like a lot of anger. And for as hard as things got with my ex-husband, even like when he did things that I think normally I would have like really freaked out about, I just like, I don't really get angry anymore.
I mean, if you don't have to go through the purge process, then good for you. But I mean, I've in my life had that where like it does feel like a purge, or like I was just talking about with my friend, it's like convulsions almost.
Well, I feel like I purged.
Like cry and uncontrollably.
I did that. I feel like I cried for a year. I feel like I have cried so much. And I remember like my therapist being like, and everybody saying, I'm sure you heard this, like the only way through it, the only way out is
the other side through.
I'm like,
yes,
nobody say that to me again.
The only way to the other side is through.
And so I was like, I don't want to go through. I want to go around.
You know what I said? Yeah, I said, I just want to go to sleep and wake up in 3 months. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, but I remember everything I read. There's a great book, Untethered Soul. Have you read that book? It's a good book. It's really good. I mean, I read a lot during this time. And because so much of what I was being told by like all these like kind of like spiritual leaders and people I was like meeting and talking to was like, you have to go through it. Yeah. You have to feel it. And of course, my response to that was like, I don't want to feel it. It feels terrible.
Of course.
And you have to, I remember them saying to me too, you have to surrender to it. And I was like, I don't want to surrender to it. But I remember.
Tougher, I'll stand up to it.
Yeah. You just want to fight it.
Your ego is a real bastard.
Yeah, real bastard.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I give up. Like I remember it, and there it was. And I think I just, and it's such a like, that feeling is now a little bit of a distant memory, and I remember it, but
it fades quick.
It fades quick, but I remember feeling like I wanted to die.
I was just gonna say, I remember when I was going through it, I was retiring, breaking up with my boyfriend of 5 years, and moving, all within days. Yeah, and I knew it was coming.
Yeah,
and I seriously felt like I was dying.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. And it's so similar for me too, because, we're 10 years into the business. We have a professional CEO. We have all these people running the company. I'm not in the weeds the way I used to be. Yeah. So my role shifted a lot, even though I'm still like responsible for so much with the company. I'm not in the weeds. My like whole identity was all messed up.
Oh man, it was all in limbo.
It was all in limbo. My marriage ended. I was a single mom. I was like now living by myself. And that's how I felt too. I mean, and I remember talking to a couple of girlfriends, who'd kind of been through similar things, and them saying they felt like in that time in their life, they wanted to die too. And I was like, okay, it's not just me. And that's why, again, like I like talking about this stuff, because I think people need to understand that they're not like crazy if they feel that way. Yeah. But that's how I felt. I was like, I don't want to like, I didn't want to die.
It just felt like I was dying.
Yeah, it was like
and you were dying to that old. Yeah. My girlfriend and I were just talking about this. It's like you have to let the old person die, the old view. See, I think this is my concept on change anyway, is that change is hard because it means you're going to have to mourn something. Yeah. It's the death of something. And so it's not that you're actually not looking for the future. You're leaving your husband, like you and your husband are separating for a reason. You're transitioning through things for a reason. Right. You're asking for this. You're calling for this. But what you are going to have to deal with is the death of never again this. Right. Never do that. Yeah. Never live here. Never wake up with them again. Yeah. Never. There's so many nevers again that's the deaths that you have to endure and deal with and cope and grasp and like cry through. Yeah. And that the change is that's the hard part about change. Not because you're actually scared of the changes, because the changes are for the better, right? I mean, that's the point.
Right. No, I know. And now it's so interesting, dating and being like, oh, there's a lot of shifting and changing there too. And you're like, oh, it's just like, and you're right. That's such a good way to put it. Cause like, when things change, it's hard. And you, even though like you're making a change because you ultimately know in your gut it's the right thing, it's not easy. And you're like, it's.
What did you learn about yourself?
Well, I think I learned that I'm, much more like resilient than I probably thought I was,
You seem pretty resilient anyway, though.
I mean, I think
more.
I mean, I think that I think I've just, it's a good question. No one's really asked me that, what have I learned about myself?
Do you have different patterns?
I think
Do you have different routines?
I think,
You didn't realize were important to you?
Yeah, I think I learned that like, I think in terms of like learning things about myself, like I learned that I do like, I was in this kind of, I don't want to say like, I didn't put a lot of emphasis on my relationship and on love and on that kind of stuff. And I think I missed, it's sad, I think I missed out on that because I was so focused on the business and the kids that I didn't take care of what I needed for myself for so many years.
I heard something just the other day from this lady who gave me a facial who's basically like a total intuitive. The facial was a byproduct. People
like that, yeah.
I can give you her number.
I would like to see her.
Yeah, you'll probably just cry through it because she's just like, she's telling you shit and you're like, what? Yeah. But she said, for me, she was like describing my situations and stuff I was dealing with. And she said, what I'm seeing is she's like, the focus is the distraction. Right? So you think you're being great, right? You think you're being so focused and you're being so committed to something. You're like, I'm doing a great job, but the focus is the distraction.
Yeah. Well,
I was like, whoa.
That couldn't be more spot on for me because I was so focused on building Drybar and raising my children, and that was it. And I didn't put any attention to the fact that like I wasn't really happy underneath it all in terms of, I was happy in a lot of ways because I was like so proud of this business that we built and so proud of all the jobs we created. And it's like, and I'm so, it's like that and my children will be the best things I ever did. But I never stopped to think about my own like personal happiness.
Those were outside of you.
Yeah. And so I finally did, and a year ago I decided to make that change. And I think that's the biggest thing about myself is like, and not to get like too into the weeds here, but I didn't.
No, go there.
I didn't think I was like a very affectionate person. Like I didn't think I needed that. I didn't think I needed that like from another human being. I was like so independent, so like, I don't know. It just like, it was like shut off in me for so many years. And now I'm like, oh, I would like to like really experience that.
Some of that would be good again.
Yeah. Oh, oops, forgot about that, you know? And so I think that's like the biggest thing I learned was that I'm like, pretty like intuitive, like emotionally driven person. And even I discovered it like with like my friendships, like my best friend Paige has been my best friend since our babies we met when our now 14-year-old sons were babies in like a breastfeeding support group. And, and she was always like, our whole friendship, even in a friendship, I was always a little arm's length, like not very intimate as a person. I don't think, I never even like thought about the word intimacy. Like I didn't even like, really know what it meant. Like, and I don't think I ever like embraced intimacy in any way, shape or form. And I remember her kind of telling me that about our friendship. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? Like lay in bed with you? Like, what does that even mean? And then through this divorce in the process, it's like, oh, I understand now what intimacy is. And I think I would actually like to have that in my life,
Maybe, the real root is like vulnerability.
It is. And somebody told me about Brene Brown.
Oh, of course.
And she's
wonderful.
She's amazing, which, therein lies like the craziness of my life because going through this really hard time, someone tells me to watch a Brene Brown talk. I don't even think I knew I don't even know if the word vulnerable was in my vocabulary. I didn't really,
I didn't know how to
Google
spell
it.
that damn word.
I had to Google it. I was like, what is vulnerable? What does that even mean?
I know. I'd go to type it on my phone. I'm like, why isn't it project? I'm not even close enough to project the right word.
Listen, my spell check is so messed up on my phone that it spells words wrong.
Yeah. Is abs for me.
You know what's funny for me is anytime I try to write the word just, it populates to hair. What the hell does that mean? Isn't that ironic? But so I got turned on to Brene Brown, and I watched one of her things, and I was like, whoa, blown away. And on a whim, just because so many women love Drybar, I went to DM her on Instagram and had a DM from her.
What?
To me, inviting me to a lunch.
Holy manifestor. Out there.
It was crazy. It was the craziest thing. And it was such a nice little
because you probably just started following her then, and then you looked and you saw the message.
Yeah.
Was it too outdated to make it in time for the lunch?
Yes, totally missed the lunch. But I reached out to her. Talk about vulnerable. At this point, I was like so desperate. I'll do anything. I'll say anything to anybody. And I was like, oh my God, I just watched one of your talks. You're so amazing. I'm going through a divorce. I feel like I want to die and blah, blah, blah. And she wrote back to me and we started talking. She gave me her cell. I called her.
Amazing.
I was like, and I didn't really realize what a big deal she was at that moment. I just was like, this is this amazing woman on the internet who's like, talks about vulnerability. And then, we've
and Oprah seems to like her.
And Oprah, I'm like, who do I think I am? And we have become friends. And if
your phone goes missing for a hot second after this is over with, it's because I'm trying to find her cell.
I mean, it just was like, and I learned so much more. And I would text her all the time.
What did she teach you? What did you take away being the most
she
useful?
Was very much a big listen, you have to go through it. You have to feel it.
Damn it, everybody
keeps saying this is not what I want you to tell me. Give me because that was what I was running around being like, how do I fix it? Yeah. How do I get better? What do I do? And she was one of those people who was like, you have to feel it. You have to go through it. I know it sucks. I mean, I remember her texting me like, I know this fucking sucks. And I'd be like, but I feel this. I feel this. She's like, I know. You just have to feel it.
You're doing great.
Feel it. You're doing great. Keep going. Go.
That's a sign you're on the right path.
And she was the one who told me about this retreat in Nashville because her friend Miles was the CEO. And again, these are very surreal moments that probably don't happen to a lot of people. So I realized how lucky I am. She was like, she's like, I have an idea if you were open to it. And she's like, I'm going to have my friend Miles, who's the CEO of this place called OnSite in Nashville, call you. I was like, okay. And he called me, the CEO of this place calls me the next day and he's like, and he's the sweetest guy. And I'm like hysterical. Never talked to this guy in my life. And I'm like, whoa. And he was like, I think you should come to OnSite. I think you should do this program. And it was just all these things that I kept, I reached, like I was saying before, I reached out to everybody I could think of to help me get better and figure my way through this.
Well, it sounds like things were falling into place. And I always feel like to me, those are winks from the universe that 100%. Things are going correctly. Mm-hmm. Whether it be seeing the numbers on the phone that are 555 or 444 or 1111 or whatever it is, or whether or not you're doing something and you thought, oh, whoops, I didn't mean to. Oh, I'm so glad that happened because then I did this and I met this person. Or for me, I always feel I notice this in the grocery store all the time. I'll be pushing my cart around, and I love grocery shopping, but I'll be pushing my cart around and all of a sudden I'll be called to go down an aisle or think I forgot something or went the wrong way, and I'm always grabbing something. I'm like, I totally forgot to write that down. Or I forgot I needed that. And things like that where you just
so believe that.
Don't those are easy because they're easy to accidentally go down the wrong aisle or take one extra drive down. But let that be the seed to bigger things of trusting your intuition and signs and gut feelings and things like that, because we really have a lot more of an understanding, I think, for what needs to happen moving forward than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, and I think the gut feeling thing is so true, and it's so easy. It's such a fine line, right? I feel like it's so easy to not pay attention to your gut.
100%.
It's so subtle, right? And it's I feel like when any time in my life where I haven't really trusted my gut and I haven't gone with what I felt, it's always the wrong decision, and it's such an...
Do you know how many people hear that? Me or anybody hears that and they go, shit.
Yeah.
Because there's always something going on where you're
damn it. Yeah. It's this, it's so interesting the things that our mind does. And I And I listen to and I read a lot of things about this stuff now because I'm so fascinated by it and how our egos, and our minds, it's like the thing with like, don't think of a pink elephant and you think of a pink elephant. Like, why can't they just listen to us? It's like our mind.
They are though.
Yeah. I mean,
have you listened to Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden or Bruce Lipton?
No.
They'll talk about all this stuff, but there's a lot of, our bodies hormonally get conditioned to the stimulant of a trauma, of a negative thought, and we're addicted to that hormonal response.
Oh, I believe that.
And that can be really perpetuating.
Yeah.
And then over time, we end up reforming that thought into being something that isn't even really real anymore.
I feel like that's a lot of like what, I learned a lot in therapy is like, the stories we make up in our minds versus like what's the reality. And
sure.
I feel like someone once said to me that your intuition can be broken. And I was like, oh, definitely mine's broken, or was, where you think that like, you're so turned around that you're like making odd decisions because your intuition is not leading you the right way.
Well, you're probably listening to the ego side. There's another semi-saying where I have a hard time getting these things exactly right.
Same.
But good. Thanks, sympathy.
Roughly.
But it's like the ego has an urgency because it knows its time is limited. And the soul is patient because it knows it has eternity.
Ah, that's so good.
And so that's the subtleness that's like, I only operate out of love. I don't make you scared. You're making the right choice. I only operate out of love. Where the ego operates out of fear, insecurity, and it just goes deep and it's hard and it's loud. It's so loud.
And I think, that's the thing when you ask like what I've learned, it's like I'm learning because like, right, we're always learning.
Of
it's
course.
like, I think I'm learning to not operate out of fear. I think that's a big thing for me is like to not do something because I'm scared of something else, and that has been a big learning for me.
Like, is there an example of something that you said yes to that you're like, I wouldn't have done that?
Well, I think it's like, I think everybody, and I don't know if this was true for you, and I did first get divorced, everybody was like, you need to take a year. I'm like, a year? And not date? I'm like, a year? And not date and just like spend time working on yourself. I was like, nope, not doing that. I was like, I hate that advice, but everybody said that you need a year to go through it.
I didn't listen either.
I know. And I was like, and I think it was like, for me, it was like this fear that if I don't start dating, I'm never going to find the guy I'm supposed to find. I'm
going to expire.
Yes. Like there's some fear in me that's like, if you don't like keep at it, it's never going to,
validation.
I think it's like, I also approach it like I approach business. Like I'm very driven and I make shit happen and that's just what I do. So I'm like, well, why wouldn't it be the same with like love and romance?
Yeah,
I'm like, it doesn't really work the same.
I really struggle. This is like just a confession. Like I do struggle I'm very nurturing and I love taking care of people, but I have a look of an aggressiveness to me. And it's really hard for me to like operate from a really soft space consistently.
That's interesting.
Very like.
Is that why you're a great race car driver? Do you have to have that intensity?
Probably, yeah. And it's why the show's called Pretty Intense, because that's my natural energy. And I was just talking about this with my friends too the other day that, in relationships. So someday when if you haven't already met him again, met the a new love of your life, but there'll be that person and you'll have issues because you just will.
Of course.
100%.
Yeah.
And that is just because that's who you are. Like, so for me, it's like slow down. Like I will always struggle to slow down and just relax and not take things so seriously. And so in a relationship, these can be a problem, right? Because they're our reoccurring issue. And we lose that ability to remind each other, hey, you're getting better at it. But because guess what? It never is going to be gone.
Right.
Because it is who you are.
Yeah.
So I said, if I can go from being someone who's like 10 out of 10, intense, super like pushing too hard, aggressive, never slow down. And if I can end my life at a 3, I did a really, really good job.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's recognizing those aspects of us that are just who we are innately, and our natural energy, and just our soul's personality expression.
Yeah.
That we just go, look, like we have to go, like, this is who I am, but you're getting better and you're getting better. Cause I think that can be hard in a relationship.
Well, I think it's like
too.
you can recognize it, you know, like for me, I'm incredibly impatient and I want things like, you know,
yesterday.
Yes. Like, why haven't we done this? And I really don't understand. And I think this is the thing about like when I'm driving and people are driving slow, I don't understand why you don't have urgency. Like, don't you have somewhere to go? Yes. Like what? Like, why are you driving so slow? And then every now and again, and it's funny because I was driving up here, I was like, I'm driving slow. What's happening? Because I'm looking at the water, which, you know, in LA, I'm like buzzing all around and I'm usually late for everything. So
Sounds like you need to move to the coast.
I know.
Like all the way to the coast.
I know. And it's like, that's the thing for me. It's like slowing down too. It's like being so impatient. And I also like recently got a tattoo that means no expectations, because I think that's another thing, is that it's in French. It's another thing for me that I expect so much from other people, probably because I expect so much from myself.
Yep.
And I'm like, why aren't you being the best that you can be? I'm trying to be the best that I can be. Why aren't you doing that?
It is really hard to understand why people aren't great.
Yeah.
You're like,
or
why?
Trying for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like in relationships and things, like, well, let's like, we're not getting any younger. Like, let's get on with this. But then it's like, well, you have to give it time. And like my best friend's always like, you know, a flame needs air, like, or to burn. And I'm like, just light it, you know?
So what's dating then? Like, give me the oversight of dating. Is it like weird to date again?
So weird. Well, I guess you're not dating. You've been in a relationship for a while, right?
I'm not very good at dating. I'm
not good at dating either. Who's good at dating?
I'm not really much of a dater. I'm kind of like you're my human now for a while. Yeah, you're my human.
But it's like, how did I mean, I don't know how you guys met, but like, I'm like, what do you do now? Where do you meet people?
Meet on dating apps now.
I mean, I'm on a dating app, but it's weird.
It's weird, right? I agree. It's not weird in the real world, but so hang on. So look, like one of the things that's come up too lately is like, what are repeating patterns? Mm-hmm. And while you probably don't have a really good Rolodex of like, or a beta test of repeating patterns, as you really were with one person for a very long time, but looking forward, based on what you've learned and where you're at, what are some core values that you're just not willing to compromise on again?
Well, I think sure, I learned a lot in my marriage, but I think, you know, the marriage probably should have ended sooner than it did. And I think what I've learned in the last year through dating and learning about myself is like, you have to, like, you know, you can't let things linger and drag on when they're not right. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that goes for everything in your life. When you realize there's something that you're doing that isn't working, you gotta, like, even if it's hard, to like say like, nope, not going to do this, or I'm not going to be treated that way, or I'm not going to let somebody do that. Then you have to like nip those things in the bud. I think that's the pattern I realized of myself in the last year, was kind of letting myself kind of get dragged through things that weren't good or healthy for me. And now I'm like, nope.
What are your indicators?
I guess it's like, you know, being more communicative and knowing that, you know, like, you know, I, not to go back to dating, but it is like, it's been really interesting to be like dating and being like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work because I can see that you're not going to be this person I need you to be. And so I'm not going to, initially I was wasting my time and just kind of like, well, I'm going to make it work. We're going to figure it out. Nope. You know, it's like, you have to like really know what you want and what you need, you know, for yourself. And I think that's true. You know,
what do you need?
And I mean, well, now we're getting really personal.
Well, I mean, other than sex, what do you need?
Well, you know,
that's easy.
Yeah.
That's the easy part.
The sex?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that was sort of missing for me too. I think, you know, for me, it's like I need somebody who, first of all, I think I need somebody who's very strong and confident.
Yeah.
And I think for who I am, what I've done with my life,
yeah,
I have found that it's a little intimidating.
Yeah, it's a big life.
To men. I mean, I'm sure you've probably experienced that too. Although, you know, you need somebody who can like hang with you and someone who's not intimidated and emasculated. found that to be a case. You know, it's like, God, that's not going to work, you know? You know, and someone's in like the same like place I am. And, you know, there's this like, you know, I'm really like, I've learned that I really love like an old fashioned kind of guy who's like very chivalrous. And like, I think because I've always been the one who is like the boss and takes care of everything. I was just
going to say, you don't want to be in charge, do you?
I don't want to be in charge, not in a relationship.
Yeah, it's actually how it is for me too. I took a personality test, and part of it was in a relationship. I actually don't want to be in charge. I don't. Yes. And I'm like, yeah, like I really do. Please don't take advantage of the fact that I'm so nurturing and like want to take care of you, because I will. But like, I want, like, respect me for that, right? Because
and it's weird because it doesn't seem like it would fit my personality, because I'm so strong and so driven, and I am so used to, you know, just having the answers and figuring the things out, and that's just who I am.
It's about balance, though.
Yeah, but you can only do that so much. And I realized that wasn't like the case in my marriage, which I realized ultimately wasn't right for me. You know, it's like I want, you know, I like, and it's like a polarizing topic because the world has shifted
so like everyone's so independent, everyone's like women so
and
strong.
You know, and I think, and I've been on panels before where, you know, with women where I'm like, listen, I realize that there's some really bad guys out there who've done some really bad things, but they're not all bad. And my business partners are both men, and they're really good guys. And the CEO of my company is a man, and he's amazing. You know, I'm like, there's really good guys out there too, you know, and it drives me a little bit crazy that there's this like, you know, it's like, let's just be equal in terms of like, you know, the whole, like, it doesn't have to be all women. I don't think it should be. I think there should be a balance, you know? And so I think for dating and being, you know, figuring out what you need, it's like, I want a guy to take care of me in that emotional way, you know? I don't need him to take care of me in other ways.
It's okay to want someone to treat you like a queen.
Right.
And you'll treat him like a king probably too.
Yes, of course.
It's not a matter of like, you know, some old outdated 50s roles of, you know, a couple. It's like, no, I just want to be a queen, like, and I want my king.
Yeah, like open the doors for me.
You know where that's
like
gonna
surprise. I'm a big like surprise me. I love surprises. Like I love like being like the unexpected. You know?
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and I think that the root of all of it really, like, you know, to have that deep connection and that respect for each other, because if you're going to play certain roles that you really want, and if you want someone chivalrous, and if you want to, you know, not have to be so in charge, like the connection underneath it all is the vulnerability. It's that vulnerability of saying how you really feel and not holding back, even if it's really nice. Because sometimes we hold back the really nice because we're like, oh, they don't want to hear it again, or oh, maybe they're not feeling that much as I am right now. But just to really go there, and if they're not going to meet you there, then you're already getting your information, and it's better to be sooner than later.
So true. I mean, and that's something I've learned is like, you know, get the information, gather as much information about somebody as you can. I mean, I think, you know, for me with dating, it's like, oh, you know, I mean, someone I was recently dating, it's like, I realized they were like not ready to be in a relationship. I was like, oh, well then I gotta go, because that's what I want, you know? It's like, and so you have to like know what you need and what you want. And I think it's interesting too, how it translates into, when I think about into business and all like the, you know, the people who have worked for us, you know, and like when they needed something else, it's like, and they would be afraid to say, I'm not happy in what I'm doing right now, because they're afraid to tell their boss. I'm like, or tell me. I'm like, just tell me and we'll fix it and we'll figure it out. No one's getting fired. Like, we're not gonna do anything crazy. Like, if you're not happy doing, you know, marketing for the shops and you would rather be doing marketing for the products, like, let's talk about it. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen in that second, but you know, it's like, and I think that's the thing is like, I think people are afraid in all aspects of life to say what they really want for fear that it's going to backfire on them. And perhaps it does, but
I feel like we're
still do it.
Similar, because what I'm feeling right now is that you believe in your companies, you believe in your products, you believe in that.
Yeah.
You believe it wholeheartedly. So the communication is not offensive, because you just want the best.
Yeah.
And in a relationship, there's some part of you, and this is some part of me that I've had to deal with too, that doesn't believe that you're going to get it or you deserve it.
Oh, yeah. I'm firmly in that. Unfortunately, I'm
so
in that
if you don't
phase, I know.
believe, then all you're going to do is sabotage, right? Because you don't believe and things aren't going to go right. So as soon as you believe that that is what you're going to get and that is what you deserve and you are worthy of all of those wonderful things, then that is exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, but how do you get yourself to believe?
That is.
Who has that answer?
That is, and honestly, the journey is to the self.
Yeah. Yes.
The journey is to the self.
I
It's
believe
really
that.
not about someone or something outside of you filling you up. If you can get to the point where absolutely nothing is necessary outside of you to fill you up, you're getting really close.
It's very shaman-y of you. It's
very
true.
But it's
so
like I
true.
think this is what's lost in like religion versus spirituality or self, the sort of self-reflection stuff is that when you're doing the spirituality or like I feel like even spirituality is getting like pigeonholed into this bad space, but it's really about self-reflection. It's more of that Buddhism kind of attitude of like the self. And that is where it's all at. There was a great Ram Dass quote that I saw, and I
love Ram Dass.
Yeah, that the only I've literally looked at this like 5 times because I'm like, why can't I get this quote right? As we can relate on the not getting the quotes right, but it says, there's nothing you can do for me but work on yourself. There's nothing I can do more for you than work on myself.
Yeah.
And so if you don't work on yourself and get yourself right, get your shit together, get confident, get comfortable, not need me essentially, then
that's when it all works.
Frequencies are gonna sync up with the right person, and it's gonna be easy.
Yeah.
It's never gonna be easy.
But it's true.
You're always gonna be dealing with the human element and ego.
I think I've learned that too, is like you can't look to somebody else for your happiness. It's gotta come from with you.
Yeah, the validation, the simple little validation, like simple little things like you say, I love you, and they're like, they don't say it back, like, oh God. And
it doesn't
like,
matter.
Wait a second, I offered that, it's gone. You don't have to say it for me to. I don't want to get the response. I'm not here for the response. I'm here for give.
It's not give to get.
Yes, correct.
Do you ever listen to Rachel Hollis? You know who
she is? She's great.
She's great, and I feel like
super relatable.
I just was listening to something, and she said just that, like this whole like theory of like I am love. Like I'm gonna come at you with all of my love, and not to your point for you to say, I love you back. Yeah, it's just like. And I have to give my ex-husband a lot of credit because I remember him saying that to me before. Like sometimes if I'd say something nice and he wouldn't respond to it, if it was like on text or something, he's like, it was so nice to receive that. I was like busy and whatever, but it like made me happy and smile. But I didn't, it's like, don't send it. You can't send something out into the world with the expectation that you're going to get it back. It's like you have to just put it out there because you want to put it out there, and then like that's it.
Yep.
And that's a tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It is a little hard. I was just sent like a sweet message, and I was like, look, I sent him a text, and it was like I just send when I have strong feelings and like hits. I just say them because you have to. Like you have to follow the intuition. So the more you can respond to that intuition that, as you've said so simply, it's so hard to hear sometimes, the better you'll get at hearing it and the better you'll get at responding to it.
Yeah. It's a journey, man.
So what are you going to, what are the core values you want to instill in your boys after all the things that you've learned in your life? Because you've had a big life.
Yeah.
You learned so far, and it's okay to expand on it as time goes because that's life.
I mean, I think I want my boys to grow up with this, like, I can do anything I want. I want my boys to grow up thinking they should follow what makes them happy, not what they think society tells them they should be doing.
Yeah, amen.
I really want my kids to have that like freedom, emotional like freedom to just be and do what they want. And I really think a lot of that comes from like I think my parents allowed that for me, and they let me like try the things I wanted to do, and there was never a lot of judgment, really any judgment, and I think I want my kids to grow up in that same, vein of like, anything's possible, you can try anything, but also like, my 14-year-old son he's really into music, and he really wants to be a rapper, and
he's the next
wouldn't be my first choice, but it's kind of what he wants to do, and I fully support it, but I'm like, then the practical side of me comes out and says, but perhaps if that doesn't it's hard to do that. It's like 1 in a million to make it at that level. Perhaps you can, but even, you're learning how to produce music, and maybe that's something that you end up doing too, So
have you ever read The Alchemist?
I have it, but I haven't read it.
Well, you 100% should.
Really?
And, that story makes me think of like, just let him be the rapper then. Yeah. And guess what? Maybe he'll end up finding what he actually really wants on the way to being a rapper.
Yeah, I know. I think that's like a lesson I have to like learn.
You should read The Alchemist. It's a great book. Great book. It's been around forever.
I also want my boys to grow up, I want them to be like good men. I think because of, the state that we live in, and I want my boys to be really respectful to women. I want my boys to like, have a lot of respect for women and each other. And, my kids are really, especially my older son, like he's always like been the kid who sticks up for the kid that's getting bullied, and I think that,
my dad taught me that too. He's like, if you get suspended for sticking up for somebody,
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's an important thing, it's like, and then I just want my kids, you're like, I was always in trouble. My kids are, but my kids are very, they get a lot of their like chutzpah, I would say, I think from me, because I'm like,
what's that mean?
Very like outspoken, like not afraid to speak up and say what they think, which, can get them in trouble. Like, I was loud and a little obnoxious in school, and I would like go for the laugh, and I was like a little bit attention seeking, which isn't surprising now.
I was like that too. We're real similar.
Yeah. And my kids are like that too. And, and it's also hard. I mean, I also, not to get on a tangent, but like, I don't know if you ever are going to have kids, but like, the things that kids are taught in school, and it feels very antiquated to me, and it's a little bit frustrating. And I wish that there was like, I know I keep going back to it, but having gone through what I've gone through in the last year or so, the fact that like kids are not equipped to deal with what they're being thrown at in the world of like, this like crazy, like Instagram and social media and all this shit that they're dealing with. Like kids should be taught like mental health.
I think it's probably, I've shot almost 30 episodes now of the show. Mm-hmm. And I would say that I'd say 2/3, at least half of the shows, we talk about curriculum in school. Yeah. Because there's just, it's so outdated. So outdated. There's just no, like the real tools for life. Do you freaking need geometry? Yeah. Seriously.
No, I mean, it's like my kids say to me, and I was terrible in school. Like I just wasn't, neither one of us went to college. Like look, we did pretty well.
We did okay.
Yeah.
Got millions of reasons why it worked out.
It's like I didn't, and my sons will say to me, like, I don't care about this. How does this matter in my life? And I don't have an answer for you.
Right.
I will say what I say.
You want to say I agree.
I do say I agree. And because that's the other thing with my children. I've always been very, like, we're very real with our kids. And I think that's important. And I've said to my kids, unfortunately, it's a means to an end, and you have to do it. Yeah. I don't agree with it. And I don't think you're necessarily learning what you need to learn for life in school. Yeah. You're going to learn that in other ways, but you have to do this, and you have to show up, and you have to just go through the motions. I think what school does do, is teach responsibility. Yep. And that's what I say.
Time management.
That's what you take away from it. You learn how to deal with people and be social and like be respectful and be on time and that kind of stuff. But I don't think you need to.
You could do that going to recess. You could do that going to a meditation class. Yeah. You could do that going to a manifestation class. You can do that going to. We laugh at home ec, but let's face it. If you learn how to cook, that change your life. It keeps you healthy. Keeps you away from disease. Yeah. Let's stop laughing at boiling water and making cupcakes. Like this is the kind of stuff that is actually going to play into your life. And it's funny how to wash clothes. Yeah, I don't know.
And I think that like the things that like the whole like like to your home ec. That I think there's like probably a lot of boys out there that would like to know how to cook, but it's like frowned upon in school because it's like a girl thing, which like, look how many male chefs there are.
Mostly. I mean, like when you think about famous chefs, a lot, like
most of them are men.
Come to mind. Yeah. Actually, I've interviewed a bunch of them. They're all men.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just, I think it's so broken, and it's hard to see your kids go through that. And like this, like,
it's finding the lesson in that, right? I guess that's the best you can do is say, in life, sometimes it's not always easy. Sometimes it doesn't really make sense, but sometimes you have to find the positive in it, and you have to go, look, at least I'm learning how to bite my tongue. I'm learning how to, I'm learning how to deal with things that aren't
like my younger son is really into skateboarding, and he goes to like a skate park every day of his life, and he's so focused on that. And he's also like off the charts ADHD, has such a hard time focusing in school, but he's so focused in skateboarding and he loves it so much. And he's like working so hard at it. And I'm like, great, we fully support it. Like you can do it all day long.
Look how his dis-ease is serving him. If he really wants to do something, he knows how to get it done.
Right.
He can get it done. He can
he's
focus.
like, I don't want to sit in a chair in school. I was like, I know, bud. I wish you didn't have to, you know?
Wow. Well, there's so much to navigate in life. And, you know, we're I mean, you know what? It's kind of like, and then the question comes up, like, what's the point of all of it, right? What's the point of life? And let it feel good that it's about that journey.
Yeah.
Let the journey feel like let there be joy in it, and realize that like, it's not always going to feel good, but once you get through it, that fun part that you don't like, that no one likes, by the way, so it's not just you. Yeah. Nobody likes to cry. Nobody likes to feel horrible. Nobody likes to be confused. Nobody likes to feel alone. Nobody. Yeah. But once you get through, you're stronger. And you keep doing that, and all of a sudden, you know, you're Zeus.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting how the things, another lesson I've learned is like you can't have the good without the bad, and you can't have the bad without the good. And that's the, in terms of like, what's it all for? You know,
it's the dualities of life. It's polarities.
Like highs and lows. You know?
It only comes with like, it just as much as like, I've heard this, you know, I heard it said where, you know, people are talking about how bad the world is and how awful it is. And then there's the other side. It's like, yeah, but look at the conversation that you and I are having right now.
Yeah.
Was this happening 20 years ago?
Right. No.
Probably not really. Like tiny little pockets of the world here and there with monks on the top of mountains. Yeah. Like, you know, or, you know, in very small little spots. But look at the evolution. So again, it's about the duality of life, the light and the dark side. Like we have to face both of them. They're both a reality, and it's how we deal with them.
And it's how you learn and grow. 100%.
Exactly. It can't
all be roses and sunshine.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to die for that, and I'm not ready.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much. What a cool conversation.
I know. I feel like I could stay here for hours.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, next topic is about transition and vulnerability. No, thank you.
Yeah. No, it's
really
great.
good. You've got it more figured out than you think you do, and you know, trust that and trust yourself, and you know, if you ever for a moment wonder, just look at what you've done so far. Just look, like, have a little perspective.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Good advice.
Thanks. Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.